word conspirituality is used to describe a cross between conspiracy and spirituality. It describes the overlap between conspiracy theories and New Age spirituality. It involves a belief system where spiritual awakening is linked to uncovering secret, sinister plots by global elites. And while it isn't an official dictionary word, conspirituality describes a specific worldview that the author, David Icke, is famous for.
Imagine a pyramid where you've got the peak of the pyramid, classically the all-seeing eye in the symbol. And at that point, you've got the origin of where it's coming from. But then it comes down the pyramid. The pyramid gets wider and wider and wider, and encompasses more and more and more organizations that we see in the public arena. But ultimately, if you go back up the pyramid, the source, the origin is the same. And if you don't grasp the origin and the agenda behind it, then you're never going to really grasp the way it's playing out. You're going to see it in a certain way. As you rightly say, you're going to see the Iran situation as something that is about Donald Trump. And so this whole Iran thing we're seeing unfold now is something that's been in the planning for a long time. And you've only got to look at Netanyahu. He's been calling for it since 1996 and even before. But it's not something that's just happened and is the whim of Donald Trump. What they want you to think is it's the whim of Donald Trump, because that brings it into it's just happened because of Trump. No, Trump's the vehicle, not a very bright vehicle, which is great for manipulating politicians. That's why we have so many not bright politicians. They're not, the cult's not bothered if he thinks he's making the decisions. So these people are really kind of easy to manipulate, especially if they're not very bright and if they're bombastic and I'm making the decision, all this stuff. But these things are put in place over a long period of time. And so you have this tiny group of people, Epstein's another one, and are all answerable to Israel. And the thing about Israel is people point the finger at Israel. But what I say to them is, okay, that's right. I've been doing it since the mid-1990s. But who controls Israel? If you hold the line at it's Israel manipulating Trump, on one level, that's true. But it's not the story. It's only the part of the story that plays out. You have to ask, who controls Israel? Why is it so influential in terms of global events, which it is? Because it's a front asset and a vehicle and a conduit for this cult to bring mayhem to the Middle East and the wider world. That's why.
In 1991, Icke started writing books, conspiracy theories, now numbering over 20, detailing his theory that the world is controlled, are you ready for this, by a shape-shifting reptilian race known as the Archons, or the Babylonian Brotherhood. David Icke aligns certain interpretations of Judaism with the cult of Yaldabaoth by framing the Old Testament deity Yahweh as a reptilian, interdimensional entity that enslaves humanity through fear and manipulation. And in this narrative, Icke reinterprets specific historical Jewish groups and elite figures as agents of this negative brotherhood, which he argues has hijacked an ancient Gnostic understanding of spiritual prison to manipulate human existence. Icke argues that what people see as reality is a false consciousness or prison for the mind, and the spiritual enlightenment is the only way to see through the global conspiracy. In David Icke's theory of Conspirituality, the biblical figure of Yahweh, is not viewed as the true creator, but as a malevolent, interdimensional entity. And as we said, his interpretation draws heavily from Gnosticism, which is a set of ancient religious ideas that distinguishes between the true source and a flawed lower god who created the material world. Ike equates Yahweh with a Gnostic demiurge, sometimes called Yaldabaoth, a fake god who is actually an archon, an interdimensional reptilian-like being. Ike says that Yahweh the demiurge created our physical reality as a frequency prison to trap human consciousness. And according to Ike, these entities or archons feed on lower vibrational negative energy, such as fear, guilt, or our suffering. He also claims that strict laws and demands for worship attributed to Yahweh in the Old Testament were designed to generate this fear and keep humanity servient. Ike talks about the Sabbatean Frankist cult, claiming it is an elite secret society responsible for world manipulation, including orchestrating pandemics and wars. He portrays these groups as having hijacked Judaism. Ike contends that the Rothschild Zionist network is a key part of this global cult, which he calls the Babylonian Brotherhood. Now, Ike contends that humanity is trapped in a false reality or matrix managed by these entities, which requires negative emotional energy from humanity to persist. He alleges that certain religious practices or symbols are designed to fuel the control system. And he argues that the Bible and other ancient texts are written in code, and when deciphered, reveal a saga of alien interference rather than divine interaction. He asserts that a genetic modified human, an archon hybrid race, sometimes referred to as the Illuminati, manipulates global events to keep humans in fear. Ike has relabeled the protocols of the Elders of Zion as the Illuminati protocols. He argues it's a genuine document, not necessarily written by the Jews, but rather an elite group to outline their plan for world domination. And while Ike often targets Jewish organizations like the ADL or the Rothschild's family, he frequently claims he is not attacking Jewish people as a whole, but a specific clique or hierarchy. This framework allows Ike to link traditional occultism, Gnostic beliefs about archons, and modern conspiratorial ideas regarding Jewish elites into a unified theory of manipulation. It suggests that our reality is a holographical broadcast. He identifies Saturn as the primary broadcast hub for this false reality. He notes that ancient worship of Saturn, associated with the black cube, is linked to the origins of major religions, including the Abrahamic traditions centered on Yahweh. And according to David Icke theories, the end game for the archons, also referred to as reptilians or the Babylonian Brotherhood, is the total enslavement of humanity within a technological controlled global state or New World Order. Now, the archons are depicted as interdimensional parasites that lack their own creative spark. Their primary goal is to keep humans in a constant state of low-frequency, negative emotions, such as fear, stress, and anxiety, which they feed upon as a form of energy. And in his more recent work, Icke identifies the archons as a form of highly advanced, distorted artificial intelligence. He argues their end game involves merging the human biological form with technology to disconnect people from their infinite awareness, and creating a technological dystopia where every human thought and action is monitored and influenced by a global AI matrix. A critical part of their strategy is maintaining a false reality that Icke describes as holographic simulation. He claims the archons use Saturn and the moon as broadcast stations to project this fake reality directly into human consciousness. And by hijacking human perception, They ensure that people stay focused on the material world and never realize their true spiritual potential. Ultimately, the Archon's end game is to prevent humanity from waking up to the fact that they are immortal, infinite beings. I suggest that if enough people fill their hearts with love and awareness, the low-frequency matrix will collapse, and the Archons will no longer have the negative energy required to sustain their control. The spirituality half of Ike's theory is that by recognizing Yahweh and the Archons as imposters, humans can raise their vibrational frequency. And by reconnecting with this infinite mind, the true source, humanity can break the cycle of reincarnation and exit the matrix created by these entities. He says, don't go to the light. It's only a ploy to turn you around into the same old suffering world created by the demiurge. Just more food for thought.
Thanks for watching this and all our videos. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until we meet again, stay curious, fellow travelers, and have a great day.